Congressman, thank you for joining us, sir. One thing we're seeing is there is popular support for this bill, but there are a lot of people that may not know, as you do, what's in the bill. So maybe you could tell us the things that you object to that are in the bill.
Well, look, it's very hard to spend $2 trillion and not do some good somewhere for someone. But when you consider that, for example, the largest single block of money goes to bailing out pensions in states that have mismanaged their own funds, in some cases states that have a revenue increase and are actually running surpluses, it's pretty easy to see that we're not voting no on making sure there's available PPE for schools that are reopening or other aid of that sort. But we are looking at one after another bad ideas. And I'll just give you one that is pretty straightforward. We know that when we were giving $600 of excess unemployment to people, it kept them from wanting to go back to work, even when they were offered jobs. And so rather than switching that to aid to help people get back to work, the Democrats are doubling down and insisting that they continue to pay people not to work. The fact is $1.9 trillion, mostly taking care of pet projects of the majority, including, by the way, symphonies and museums and all the other things they want. And it's not going to be paid for out of some magic fund. It's going to be paid for out of tax increases and or taxes paid by your children and grandchildren. $2 trillion is such an unfathomable amount of money that most people they kind of go, that's a lot of money. Well, let's break it down. If you start looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars going to people who didn't need it, going to states that have mismanaged their funds and have been asking this for a long time, even the post office. Anyone that's been ordering from Amazon knows it's a bumper time to be Amazon or the post office or UPS, and yet we're looking at a massive bailout of the postal system simply because they won't modernize, and they don't need to as long as Congress is willing to give them the money in this bailout.
And is it true that in this particular plan that states that did mismanage the funds up to now are rewarded with more funds? And then you talked about the price of this. All of this is as the national debt is rising to, what, $28 trillion. How much COVID relief is in this plan? Because I've seen some numbers floating around that it's like 9% of it goes directly to COVID relief. Is that true?
It is. And if you add to it direct relief for people who are impacted, then it gets to be about 25%. But it never gets anywhere close to half actually related to this pandemic. And let's remember something pretty important. You see me sitting here at an 1857 House desk. We've been around for a very long time as a country. We've dealt with pandemics before. And as we start coming out of a pandemic, it's not the time that Congress says, oh, now we've got to send money out there to stimulate the economy. Here we have vaccines that over the next few months are going to make everyone the same as I am. I've had both of my vaccines. There's no reason for me to wear a mask. There's no reason for me to worry about infection. I'm immune both from giving and getting. And yet, at a time in which we have not one, not two, but now 3 separate vaccines available and millions of doses going out basically every week, they're going to say that they need the largest bailout in American history. For what purpose? There's almost $1 trillion they haven't yet spent from the last one. So is this about Democrat agenda? Absolutely. Is it about the power of the purse, their ability to take it out of your purse and spend it for you? Absolutely. Is it about keeping people at home and delaying the recovery even further? It appears to be, and that's what bothers me the most. Teachers aren't going back to work. People who want to go back to work, all they want is a vaccine and an opportunity to get back to work, and they're being denied that.
Congressman, is there something you would be in favor of, like if maybe it's too late in the process now, but is there something you and other Republicans would support in a bill that you would be willing to pass?
Oh, absolutely. We would love to see tens or hundreds of billions of dollars available through the Small Business Administration to help companies that have been impacted get the kind of reinvestment loans that let them come back out again. You know, many companies are so far behind that only a reinvestment, a long-term loan, is going to let them get back going again. A little bit of money for a few weeks isn't going to do it. Secondly, we need to continue to do research. We have new variants. We're going to be dealing with this and other diseases. And just as we have for years, we want to invest in the kind of research and the kind of capability that are going to prevent the next pandemic, or certainly allow what President Trump was able to do in less than a year be done in weeks instead of months next time. And there are technologies that have been developed during this time that show us that we can shorten the cycle dramatically for future vaccines and dealing with future diseases. Those are good investments, and they're investments that we can't expect the private sector to make if government isn't willing. We've got to be the buyer of future vaccines and the investor. So Republicans stand for all of that. But here's the other thing. I'm willing to do and help any program that puts teachers back into the classroom, but I'm not willing to continue to fund states like my own, California and New York, that continue to pay teachers 100 cents on the dollar while they're not going to school and not teaching our kids, and our kids are suffering. So all of the back to work and back to school programs, Republicans are for. They're just not for keeping people at home with a mask unnecessarily when there are vaccines that we need to take. And then we need to know that we're safe to go about our lives again.
You know, clearly, this was not a bipartisan attempt from the Biden administration pushing this through, not taking what we said two amendments from Republicans out of hundreds that were offered. Do you expect this is what's going to happen for the next 4 years? And what can Republicans do to try to make this more of a unified effort moving forward?
Well, first of all, when this thing changes in the Senate, because more moderate senators are pushing back as we speak, that's going to say to Nancy Pelosi, your power is limited. Second of all, I'm not going to defend the Biden administration, but this is Nancy Pelosi's heavy-handedness, not allowing this to be bipartisan. I'm not going to blame the new administration, because I've served with Speaker Pelosi for a long time. And the way we're going to change it is we're going to take 10, 15, 20 seats in the midterms. We're going to return to the majority, and then we're going to have the ability to work with this administration on a genuinely bipartisan basis for the American worker and the American consumer.
All right. Congressman Darrell Issa, thank you, sir.
Thank you.